Miami, what can the Heat expect tonight from Jimmy Butler? Butler was sensational in the first two games, averaging 35 points and over 60% shooting from the field. Things, of course, took a turn in Game 3 when Jimmy missed the entire second half with a right knee issue, inflammation in the right knee. But Miami never trailed and went on to win by 6 at Boston. But since returning, Jimmy Butler has not been himself. He averaged just 7 points on 27% shooting in Games 3 and 4. And Brian Windhorst is with me now live from Miami for a pre-game report heading into tonight's Game 5. Windy, Jimmy Butler's dealing with the knee soreness, and it really has showed. What's the latest on him and also on the other banged-up players on the roster?
Yeah, Max, the Heat have taken Jimmy Butler off their injury report. So he is, deemed full go ready for Game 5. But the actions and the words are two different stories. You mentioned those shooting numbers. I point you to the free throws. He had 26 free throws in Games 1 and 2 combined. He's had 2 in Games 3 and 4. He just hasn't had the explosion to get angles and go to the rim. And that is really the challenge for the Heat tonight. If they can play their full lineup, their lineup is going to be hurting. Whether it's Jimmy with his knee, Kyle Lowry with his hamstring. He has played the last 2 games, but not effectively. Only 5 of 17 shooting. He hasn't been able to show explosion to the rim. And Tyler Hero, who was a huge part of their half-court offensive attack, missed Game 4 with a groin injury. He is listed as questionable, and usually when the Heat list a player as questionable, he plays. They're pretty honest with their injury reporting. But how much can he give, especially defensively? Because, Max, you know that when Tyler Hero comes onto the court, the Celtics are going to attack him at that end of the court to test that groin out. What those injured players can give could be the difference in this series and in Game 5.
And Tyler Hero hasn't actually made up for that on the offensive end much these playoffs either. The Celtics are, of course, also dealing with their own injuries this time of year. Everyone is, including a banged-up Jason Tatum. What can you tell us about that, Windy?
Yeah, so Tatum said that his right shoulder, he had a stinger in Game 3. He said he's feeling better. Even though he played really well in Game 4, his outside shot was shaky looking. He was only 1 of 7 on threes, and you might remember he tossed up 2 air balls. So he says it is better. He's dealing with it, but he'll be out there tonight. So keep an eye on whether the Heat back off of him a little bit and try to force him to test that shot outside. As for Marcus Smart, he still has swelling in that right ankle, and why wouldn't he? It was a hellacious-looking sprain that he had in Game 3. He's going to be a game-time decision. Now, when the Celtics have listed players as questionable, sometimes it's meant more doubtful because Smart has been listed as questionable 3 times this postseason and not played. So let's just see what he does and how he looks in that pregame workout that he's scheduled to have. Robert Williams tweaked his left knee bone bruise near the end of his playing time in Game 4, but he is feeling better and he is listed as questionable, so we'll see if he can go. That's going to be an issue day to day the rest of the series.
JJ Redick joins us now. JJ, what do you expect from Jimmy tonight?
I expect a bounce-back game from Jimmy Butler. Look, I think Windy nailed it on the head here. The physicality of his game is important. He's not the traditional bring it down, ISO, pull-up jumper guy. Like, he's going to get to the basket. He's going to get to the free throw line. My understanding of his knee injury is that it's not a structural thing. This is just inflammation and swelling. So these days off and really taking on a little bit of a lighter workload in that Game 4 should help him tonight.
Who needs to step up the most in Butler's kind of compromised position?
Yeah, for the Heat to win this series, Bam Adebayo has to be great. And if you go back to 2020, when they beat the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, Bam led them in scoring, rebounding, assists, and steals. He was the best player in that series. And we saw a glimpse of that Bam, of that version of Bam, in Game 3. He's got to bring that tonight. He's got to bring that going forward if the Heat want to win this series and have any chance of a championship.
Kyle Lowry, though, right? Like, Lowry was making the game easier for Bam, it seemed to me, JJ.
Well, so Kyle is a pace setter for that team. When I talk about pace, the throw-ahead passes, getting outlet passes, and then bringing the ball up quicker, and you're not going against that set defense. But then the offensive end in the half court, Bam is the pace setter. He's the guy that gets them into their movement sets. He facilitates as a hub in that high post and on that block.
Okay, Windy, who's a sneaky player to watch on the Miami Heat tonight, do you think?
Yeah, let's see what happens with Duncan Robinson and whether he gets any minutes in the rotation. As we know, he's an extremely streaky outside shooter. He made 4 3-pointers. Now, granted, they were mostly in garbage time, but he caught a little bit of a hot streak at the end of Game 4. Wouldn't be surprised, especially if the Heat are struggling to get shooting in this game, if Eric Spoelstra goes back to Duncan Robinson and looks to see if that hot streak continues. That guy can hit 7 3-pointers in a lightning bolt, and he can also miss 7 threes. So Duncan Robinson, a bit of an X factor for this game from where I sit.
JJ, all right, so Jimmy Buckets bounces back, and maybe Bam has a big game. What about Tatum with the banged up shoulder? What do you think we get out of Tatum?
I think we get first-team All-NBA Tatum. Look, this guy, the narrative all day today, I've been on 4 shows, and the narrative all day is this inconsistency. Look, players have bad games. The last time Jason Tatum had 10 points was in the Milwaukee series. He followed that up, averaging 31 over his next 6. He had 10 in Game 3. He had 31 in Game 4. You don't become first-team All-NBA by being inconsistent. You don't average 27, 6, and 6 over 15 playoff games by being inconsistent. And the one thing to note, if you look at every series, he has guarded the best wing player in every series.
Yeah, that's really been his maturation for me as a player, is that he takes on the defensive responsibility.
Absolutely.
He's a two-way player now. He and Jimmy Butler may be in that way a little different than Luka in these playoffs so far.
Fair point. It's a fair point.
Yeah, fair point. She says a fair point. Usually he argues against it, and then you clip out what I say, and it goes all over social media. All right, look, Luka and the Mavs live to fight another day, JJ, avoiding the sweep at home with a Game 4 win. Luka with a near triple-double, 30 and 14, with 9 assists. JJ, no playoff team has ever fallen down 0-3 and come back to win. They're 0 and 146 throughout NBA history. Are the Mavs going to be the first to do it?
I don't think so. No, I think the Golden State Warriors are going to close this series out. Last night was a little reminiscent of that Game 5 in the Memphis series for Golden State, where they got down big and they called the troops off early in the game. They went back to Golden State and beat that Memphis team by 14 points. And so much of this series has swung on, do the Dallas role players make three-pointers? And they have shot way better over the course of these playoffs at home versus on the road.
How much of that is just the variance of a three-point era, where I know role players don't show up on the road in the playoffs, but just natural variance, right? Like they're cold one night, hot the next. It's the difference between winning and losing.
There is definitely some variance to this. How about this stat, though, from last night? Dallas shot 25 open threes. Golden State shot 3. That's going to be the point of emphasis for Golden State in Game 5.
Windy, can Dallas even make this a series? Like, can they get another one, do you think?
You know, if this was a different opponent where I thought Luka could straight out carry them home in 50-50 games, I would say yes. I don't think the Warriors are that team. And they also have designed a strategy that forces the role players, as JJ said, to step up. They're playing zone defense. They're basically saying, we don't want Luka in the middle. We're going to make the other guys beat us. When they lost out in Game 4 or in Game 3, we saw their role players. I mean, Reggie Bullock and Maxi Kleber made no three-pointers in Game 3. Game 4, they made 8. So it was a 10-point loss. So right there is the difference in the game. If it was a situation where I thought Luka could come out and score 48 points tomorrow night and force the series back to Dallas, I'd sit here and make the case for it. I'm just not feeling that with the way this series is playing out.
Thank you very much, Windy, as always. I mean, it helps if you're the Warriors, and whether or not you have the best player in the series, you have the second, third, fourth, fifth, probably sixth best player in the series. Here's the All-NBA first team, released Tuesday. Giannis, the only player with first-team votes on all 100 ballots. Devin Booker and Jason Tatum both made it for the first time in their careers. Luka and Nikola Jokic, who's the MVP, both made it for the third time in their careers. JJ, do you have a problem with the MVP runner-up, Joel Embiid, not being on the first team?
I don't have a problem because of the way the current voting system works. And the irony that Joel was kept off the first team for Jason Tatum, when last year, because Jason Tatum's votes got split between guard and forward, Kyrie Irving ended up making the third team and costing Jason Tatum around $35 million for not making the All-NBA in his 4th year on that rookie extension. They need to change the voting system. That's plain and simple. We are at a time when there is so much positionless basketball. Why not just vote for the 15 best players? Whoever gets the most points, you tally them up, and those guys end up on first team, second team, third team.
Even if it's not positionless exactly, there are there are different people say, oh, there are 13 different roles on the court.
Yeah.
No, there are 12, there are 15. Whatever that is, it ain't 5.
It's not 5. No, but look, if you're a voter, write your 5 best players.
Sure.
Write your next 5, write your next 5. I don't care what the
100%.
position is. We need to reward the 15 best players. That's the bottom line. And I said this earlier today on First Take. There are so many times in the last 10 years where you get there and you're like, oh, we got to put a third team center. Who should we put in at third team? Like, let's just.
But there are 15 point guards. You're like, that guy's really good.
We see this time and time again. Yeah. The value of a scoring guard, the value of big two-way wings. Like, that's the modern NBA.
Embiid was one of the top 5 players in the league this year, but the
top
rules.
3. He was a top 3
sure,
player. Yes.
I think he was the MVP, but the rules. Well, maybe Giannis, but